This year, we saw the brand new Mustang struggle. And for a good portion of the season, the Corvette struggled too. All the while, we continued to see packed grids and jam-packed stands. And those fans got to see Porsche dominate in just about every class that they raced in. Today, let's talk about the biggest takeaways from the 2024 Imsa season. I said it a second ago and I'll say it again, Porsche beat up on the grids this year in both GTD Pro and GTP. But I think one could argue that this breakout that they had in 2024, you could see coming in the final races of the 2023 season. Last year, the Porsche 963s won 2 races and led 270 laps, including 79 of 80 laps at Road America. And the race wins that they picked up were pretty darn clutch, coming at Road America and Indy to help them claw their way back into the championship fight. Now, while they ultimately came up short of the championship in 2023, when you turn the calendar over to 2024, they kept that momentum going. They had resolved some of those drive shaft vibrations that had been causing them problems throughout their opening season. And they burst out of the gates last year with a huge win at the Rolex 24, holding off a hard-charging 31 Cadillac after a fantastic battle late in the going. Now, they wouldn't reach the top step of the podium again this year until Laguna Seca, but it wasn't just those race wins that was setting the 963 apart. Consistency is ultimately what made the difference this year. Between the two factory Porsche Penske Motorsports 963s, there was only one race in 2024 where there was not a Porsche from Penske present on the podium. Holy smokes, that was a lot of P's. And that one race where they didn't technically finish on the podium, which was Indy, the customer JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche 963 still found their way onto the podium. Those factory Penske Porsches were on the podium for 12 of 18 possible chances in 2024. And to give you some context on how dominant that was, the next closest manufacturer had 8. And it wasn't just in GTP where Porsche was dominating. In GTD Pro, it was a pretty similar tale. There, Rexy and AO Racing picked up 3 wins on the season and ended up being on the podium in 5 of the 10 races. Not quite as dominant as the 963s were, but still a very, very strong season. And I mean, we can't talk about Rexy without talking about the gutsy performance that team put together in the season finale at Motul Petit Le Mans, where despite early issues in the race, that team was able to claw their way back into it, stay out on track, and ended up winning the GTD Pro Championship by a mere 4 points. As we now look ahead to the 2025 season, I think it's pretty clear that Porsche are the early favorites, and they head into the season with a very clear target on their back. And while many other programs are seeing massive changes this silly season, Porsche is one of the ones that's staying relatively unchanged. I mean, there are some small changes, but overall, I think this continuity from 2024 to 2025 will also help them, especially in the early stages of the season. I say look for Porsche to keep this strong run up, especially in the early stages of 2025. Now, with the state of things in GT3 racing nowadays, this might be a pretty obvious one. However, it's a trend that we've seen unfold now season after season. New cars to the GTD classes take time before they're competitive. Back in 2022, we saw BMW with their brand new M4 GT3 get off to a pretty slow start. They had an atrocious Rolex 24 despite being run by the very experienced Turner Motorsports. They would improve as the season went on before a stellar 2023 would see them take 5 wins and a dominant GTD championship for Paul Miller Racing. In 2023, we saw the brand new Porsche Type 992 911 GT3R take to the track for the first time and look awful. They picked up just 2 wins, one each in GTD Pro and GTD, before they went on to dominate the GTD Pro class with Rexy this year. I'd also throw Ferrari into this same sort of struggle boat. Back in 2023, we just saw them pick up a mere 2 podiums. But they would go on to back that up in 2024 with 3 wins in some huge races. You catching on to this trend yet? It's clear that it takes time, no matter how experienced the team is, to get these new cars up to speed. And this is going to be a trend that I think we see continue into the 2025 season. You see, back in 2024, we saw 2 brand new cars from 2 iconic manufacturers struggle for the most part of the season. Yes, at this point we're all very well aware of the struggles that both Ford and Corvette had at various points of the year. However, both cars would start to show more life as the season went on. Corvette would go on to dominate the CTMP round with a 1-2 finish in GTD Pro, while after countless struggles this year, Ford and their Mustangs managed to finish strong with 2 second-place finishes in the final 3 races of the season. I think it's safe to say that both Corvette and the Mustangs experienced many of the growing pains that we often see with these new cars, which are generally inconsistent performance and some reliability issues. But I think it's also clear that both of these brands took huge steps as the season went on, and now heading into their second season of competition, the question is, can they follow in the footsteps of BMW, Porsche, and Ferrari and have a huge second season? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Before we go into the next story though, I just want to quickly tell you about the S's newsletter. Here I send you everything you need to know heading into each and every IMSA weekend. It's completely free and a fantastic way to make sure that you don't miss any of the IMSA news heading into next season. You can check that out by clicking the first link in the show notes or heading to offinthes's.com. In recent years, we've talked about increasingly packed grids. But the grids haven't just expanded, they've also improved. And there's arguably now more top talent and top teams than we've ever seen before. This has ultimately led to a grid that's not only very strong today, but also looks to be very strong for years to come. Looking at the GT ranks, I feel like every season we're talking about manufacturers bringing a brand new car to the class. Whether it's iconic manufacturers like Corvette and Porsche, or relatively newer ones like Lexus. Virtually everyone has introduced a new car in recent years or has one set to debut in the next couple of years. The teams are also stepping up in a big and largely successful way. New teams like AO Racing have joined the grid in recent seasons, which has transformed what it looks like to be a successful modern sports car racing team. We're also seeing expanded efforts from iconic teams like Pratt Miller Motorsports, who are set to return to the prototype ranks for the first time in decades. Also, multiple-time IMSA champions Paul Miller Racing are also expanding to include a second GTD Pro entry. And of course, we couldn't talk about growth without talking about the new manufacturers that have joined IMSA. Aston Martin, BMW, Lamborghini, and Porsche have all joined the top prototype class of GTP, while iconic manufacturers like Corvette and Ford have brought brand new GT3 spec cars. And even Ferrari have seen an explosion in presence on the IMSA grid this past season. The sport is arguably as competitive and strong as it's ever been. And with not only the strong manufacturer and team interest, but the strong fan interest as well, it looks like this is going to be a trend that carries forward into the 2025 season and beyond. Yeah, we couldn't talk about the 2024 takeaways without talking about the fans. And this isn't necessarily something that we learned in the 2024 season, but it is going to be something that defines not only the 2025 season, but many seasons after that. After all, we know and we've just talked about the jam-packed grids and the new manufacturers that are flooding to the sport. And ultimately, all of this manufacturer interest has come from these current sets of regulations that we have in place. Both the LMDH and the GT3 regulations have helped to explode interest in the sport in recent years, and both lifelong and brand new fans are coming to the sport and loving what they're seeing. This is very evident both at the track and with home viewership. At the track, it seems like it's almost a broken record. Every weekend we're talking about how we're setting attendance records, and it's more fans than we've ever seen. And honestly, I mean, it's not just talk either. On the ground, walking around the track, going through the fan zone, being on the pre-race grid walk, it's packed. It's as packed as it's ever been. And this doesn't look like it's going to ease up anytime soon. I mean, I can virtually say with certainty at this point that we're going to be talking about record numbers again for many of the races in 2025. And I think something that's going to be interesting to watch here in the 2025 season and beyond is how the sport deals with this massive influx of interest. This massive spike in interest has led to a ton of new fans, at least for now. And the sport as a whole needs to continue pushing the boundaries and improve the overall experience to turn these new fans into lifelong ones. Now, as someone who's experienced a race and at least all of the major North American championships, I can say say without a doubt that Imsa's the best fan experience at the track that you're going to find. And at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to see much change with the track experience. But the biggest area of improvement that I see is the at-home viewing experience. I'm talking things like enhanced and improved broadcasts that are accessible for anybody watching at home. And I think looking to some other racing series and how they handle their broadcast, there's a few things that we could borrow from them. Now, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I'm just trying to say that in general, I think that the sport can sometimes be a little bit difficult to follow, whether you're watching it at home or if it's between race weekends. There's just so much going on, it can be difficult to watch the race or keep up with all the news that's going on as a casual fan. The good thing is, all of these things can be improved and all of these things can be changed. We've seen improvements to the broadcasts in recent years. We've seen Imsa now broadcasting to YouTube, which has opened up so many new doors, especially for the international audience. And with 2025 right at our doorstep, I think we're going to continue to see more improvements, and it's going to be critical to watch in the 2025 season and beyond to again turn those new fans into lifelong ones. Now, many of you know that I'm not just a massive fan of the WeatherTech Championship, but of all of the support series championships that Imsa has to offer. And many of Imsa's support series have been absolutely thriving as well, and this is going to continue into 2025. I mean, just look at what we've seen in recent seasons. You have the brand new Mustang Challenge series, which had full grids all last year. Oh yeah, and did you know they're going to be racing at Le Mans next year? You also have series like the VP Sports Car Challenge, which has evolved and expanded over the past couple of seasons to add the likes of GT4 machinery. This is a series that will see another big evolution into 2025 as they add the GTDX class, which features GTD cars that ran in the WeatherTech Championship last year. And then you have Imsa's premier support series, the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Much like the WeatherTech Championship, we've seen virtually every manufacturer also introduce a new spec or a brand new car to this class as well. As for new manufacturers, we have a new one coming next year. Cupra will be joining the TCR ranks. Now, the growth of these support series is big. It ensures that there's going to be a consistent flow of drivers moving up the ranks and eventually making it to the WeatherTech Championship. But it also provides an even better fan experience for those at the track. When you're at the track, the more top-notch, good quality racing that you're seeing every weekend, the happier you're going to leave. And besides, who doesn't love to hear the variety of cars you get on an Imsa weekend? Everything from the swarm of angry bees in the MX-5 to the V10 powered Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars and the growl of the Mustang Challenge. After all, we need to remember it's not all about the WeatherTech Championship with Imsa. There is a ton of great racing in the support series, and if 2025 is anything like 2024, we're going to be in for yet another incredible season filled with some support series action. Speaking of those stories, and also speaking of the Cupra that I just mentioned, it was very recently announced that that car is confirmed to be on the grid next year. You can learn all about that brand new Cupra right here. Huge shout out to all the channel supporters. If you too want to support the show, you can head to patreon.com/offintheesses. Click that join button below. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.